Welcome back to the podcast. I'm so glad you're here. My name's Lindsay, sober coach and your host. I am hoping today that the topic that we discuss is going to give you a little bit of relief in your relationship with your partner. So this episode is for you if maybe you are feeling a little bit of space, distance with your partner, and you have an inkling that maybe the wine has to do with it. And if you don't know or think that your drinking is leading to this, I'm going to share something with you that might help you see that it is. So it's always my goal to offer you a new way to look at your drinking and a new way for you to take something that is heavy or feels really daunting and start to simplify it and bring in the strategies that are going to help you change, because that's what this is. This is about saying, I'm currently living one way and I want to be living another way. But how do I get from here to there? How do I get from being a daily regular drinker to living a life that I'm so proud of, that alcohol doesn't even matter anymore and I don't even want to drink anymore? So that's my goal and we're going to get you there. So let's dive in today. Okay. Oh, this one is so good. So my relationship with my husband, it has grown exponentially since I quit drinking. And that is one of the things that we're super afraid of when we are trying to quit drinking. It's like, oh, well, what about my husband or my partner? And, they still drink or they don't want to quit drinking with me. And that's okay. They don't have to. They are on their journey and you are on yours. And so here's a way that this showed up for me. And I'm going to share with you how you might be seeing it in your own relationship or your marriage or whatever it is right now. And so I'm going to say that this started for me as a way, it was how I was decompressing. I would come home from work and I would maybe say something to my husband like, it's been a really long day and I just want to have some wine and like hang out on the couch and relax. I kind of just want to be on my own tonight. This was really more prominent on our Friday nights. It would be like the end of the week. And by then my reward loop was even more fueled with the I deserve this mentality, even more so than on my Tuesday night decompression wine time. And so these Friday night rituals turned into, me, my bottle or sometimes multiple bottles of wine on the couch and just like watching Beat Bobby Flay. I love Beat Bobby Flay, by the way. And I would be watching this upstairs and then my husband, he'd head downstairs and kind of watch his own show or do whatever, because I was constantly creating this situation where I felt like I needed my downtime. I felt like I had earned it. And this became our norm. It became the thing that happened all the time instead of, once in a while. So there was this time in my journey where my husband said, I'm kind of sick of this like upstairs, downstairs thing. Like, you're always going and watching TV here and I'm always doing this. It's like, we're not even really spending time together. And so what I want to point out here is that this might be happening to you. Maybe you're sitting here thinking like, oh my gosh, I come home from work every night and I say that to my husband or my partner. I'm just kind of I want to just go veg out and drink wine or whatever your drink is. And you don't even realize how many days it's gone on, or that it goes on more days than it doesn't. And that has created this distance in your relationship. There was this moment where my husband had said something to me that kind of stung a little bit. It was when I really recognized how frequent this was. And he even said, sometimes if friends ask us if we want to do something on a Friday night, I just say no, because I know that you won't want to. And it's like, oh, these little comments, like that was something that just kind of signaled to me like, oh my gosh, I am not making time for the people that I love in the name of relaxing on the couch with a bottle of wine, which ultimately just would make me feel like garbage the next day. What I want to point out is that my husband didn't, yell at me or anything. We didn't get into any big fights about this. It was just this thing that started to grow, this distance that started to grow in our relationship. And that was one of the things that he had said to me, or two of them really. I'm kind of sick of this upstairs, downstairs thing. And then this little comment about how he knew I wouldn't want to do things on a Friday night. And, at the time he wasn't wrong. Like that was really, I would get really uptight. I wanted to stay home on the couch and relax, and I had earned it. And so I really saw that this was no longer just about me trying to decompress. And it wasn't just this wine habit. I was no longer choosing to be connected with my husband. I was choosing to check out from everything. And the damage was just kind of happening, and I had hurt him. And it wasn't this big drawn out thing, but it was enough to where I knew that I needed to fix it. And I also didn't know what to do. So I'm very grateful that he took time to say things to me throughout this period, because he could have just ignored it and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. But just these small little things that he said and did made me see it. And they really pushed me to look inward in what I was doing. And so today, we are going to dive deeply into how drinking quietly creates this distance between you and your partner, and what to do so that you can close the gap. If you're new here and you're wondering what goes on inside Lindsay's coaching, this is an example of exactly what I help women inside Feel Good AF work through, because these conversations feel daunting. And the reason why is because we're amazing. We're high achieving women. We're so strong. We're used to showing up when we don't want to. We do all the things on our to-do list, and we never let anybody down except for ourselves, because we're so used to letting ourselves down. So we don't want our husband to see a version of us that's different than that. Like, we don't want to be vulnerable with our husband, because we don't want them to think that we, don't have our act together. We don't want them to think that we need help. We are not accustomed to asking for help. So this is what we're going to talk about today. And I'm super excited about it, because it's really the big movement that happened in my own journey that I still thank my husband for today. And I promise you, we are so much closer now since I quit drinking. And you know this, if you've been following me for a while, my husband still drinks. It isn't an issue. So I am going to tell you about this distance. It's invisible. It's like all of a sudden you realize that you've been cheating on your husband with a glass of wine, or it always turns into a bottle. You are saying, "Ooh, I just want to be over here tonight and live in my own thoughts and ruminate about my day and escape all of it," because one glass never really gives us what we want. It starts like this. I just need to decompress. I need to unwind. I need to relax. And then there's all these excuses in your brain happening. After the week I had, I've had that big project. It wrapped up, and work was so hard. We're doing these layoffs, like all of these stressful things. We tell ourselves that because we got through those things, that we deserve wine, or we need wine to relax and unwind from those things. Now, what that wine does, and what that habit and routine does, is creates more silence between you and your partner. It starts to become this sacred time that you look forward to, because you are feeling like you want to be alone to relax. And this is what I used to tell myself too. But when you look out at what's really going on here, you're going to see that really you're just kind of disappearing. Little by little, you're choosing isolation. I did the same thing. And this is where it, escalated into the comment of when people ask us if we want to do something on a Friday night, I say no, because I know you're not going to want to. That's what my husband would say. And so this starts to feel normal. All of a sudden, it's been months since you've gone out with friends on Friday night, or maybe you've gone, but all you're thinking about when you're out is like, oh, I just really want to be home and I want to like be on the couch and relax and have my wine, because alcohol becomes this buffer and you use it to avoid the situation. So now you're in this situation that you don't know how to get out of because you've built it and it's become this routine, and there's this distance growing and growing and growing, but it's okay because you're drinking and you don't have to deal with it. You get to avoid feeling everything. I didn't want to admit that I was hiding or escaping anything. I didn't want to admit that I actually started to prefer lying around on the couch, drinking wine, getting buzzed. The only time that I wasn't responsible for something else was when I was on that couch checking out. And it was like it became the only way for me to unplug from everything, including the person that I loved the most. And I would always justify it. And here's the thing, like, that was total BS, because when I look back, I wanted to be spending time with my husband, but I just really convinced myself that this was the only way to relax. And I just kept doing it. I just told myself I worked hard, I deserved a break. And so when I think about the number of days, the number of times that I chose to just check out instead of being with my husband, it's like that was just creating a big wall. And it wasn't just affecting my marriage, it was affecting how I felt about myself, because I knew that I was avoiding things. And I didn't even really see how quickly it was all snowballing. And that's the real problem. These routines, they become routines pretty quickly. And this just crept in and it totally took over my days. And I just realized, like, when was the last time I did something on a Friday night? I couldn't remember. And I couldn't remember the last time that I was out or having a conversation with my husband where I was like emotionally available, because I was always thinking about, when do I get to have a glass of wine and relax? And that's what alcohol does when it becomes how you cope with stress. It disconnects you. It makes us just want to isolate. And not just from other people, but from ourselves too. Like, I had also kind of become disconnected to what my own goals were and what I really wanted in life, because I was so hung up on ruminating over things that weren't going my way. And here's how this shows up: because you're functioning and you're working and you're checking all the boxes, your kids are off to school, their lunches are made, and all of these things. But if you're like I was, there is this little thing in the back of your mind that is telling you you've been putting yourself aside. Because what happens is, for the sake of this habit, you have broken a million promises to yourself. And that is what makes you feel so lonely. Because every single time you say, I want to wake up feeling my best tomorrow, I want to go out to dinner and enjoy a night out with my husband, I want to have a really connected and intimate relationship with my husband, but then your actions are the familiar routine. You find yourself saying again, oh, I've had a rough day, I just want to hang out on the couch and have some me time. And that's really normal, by the way, because your brain wants to just do that familiar thing, that pattern that you've built, even though you want the other thing, even though you want connection and intimacy with your partner. It probably even feels awkward. I feel like for me, it felt awkward at first because I was the one who I knew I created this big gap in our relationship for a while. And I was like, oh no, it actually kind of feels weird to like talk to my husband. What are we going to talk about? What are we going to do? And so like, don't worry, all of that is going to get fixed. But just know that the brain wants that familiar thing. When we are trying to do the different, that's why this is so hard. And you can have that intimacy back. And this is exactly what happens with so many of the women that I coach. They're powerful and they've created these amazing lives, but this is the one part of their life that has become their biggest secret. And because we don't see it happening, we don't talk about it. We just keep relaxing, we keep disconnecting, and then you can't really ignore it anymore because you're like, ugh, what am I doing? Why am I choosing the wine? I remember so many times where I wanted to do things differently, but it just didn't work out. I would immediately rationalize by saying, I'm tired. I've had a long day. Can we just stay in? And my husband and I had just finished eating, and I poured another glass of wine and I went into the living room and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to hang out and watch Beat Bobby Flay because this was my routine. This was our rhythm, and your brain loves rhythm, even if it's not serving you, even if it's what you don't want to do, even when you want to change, it's going to cling to the familiar. So I kept doing it, even though I already knew that it wasn't how I wanted to be living. Every night, every Friday night, the same pattern. Order in, head into the TV room, glass in hand, TV on. This is what my brain had labeled as, this is what we do. We have to break the pattern. And in my case, I was fortunate enough where my husband, he kind of nudged it. He said something and he actually said it in a really sweet way that didn't make me get defensive and I didn't feel judged. He was just kind of like raising his hand saying like something's got to change here. I still did my thing that night, but I did look inward in that moment. And I really looked at, okay, this is this pattern I've built and I've been pretending that it wasn't there. And he wasn't mad. He wasn't trying to start any argument with me. He was just saying like, I miss us. I want this to not be your thing. This was a big aha moment, and it really helped me look at myself and start to think about how am I going to change? And I didn't feel guilty at the time. I just became really clear on what I had created in our marriage. I had created a routine that excluded connection. It felt relaxing on the surface, but it was keeping me at arm's length from the life that I wanted. This isn't just about quitting wine and not drinking on the couch and watching Beat Bobby Flay. This is about, I need a new default because I don't want my default to be this anymore. So this evening between me and my husband, it didn't end in a big argument. I reflected, and that reflection became a turning point for me. And I was able to start looking at, okay, what do I need to do differently? And let me tell you, when we live one way and we want to be living another way, that takes time. We don't just wake up one day and feel massively motivated to start doing everything differently and then we're happily ever after. It doesn't work that way. We have to practice it. We have to practice the new pattern that we want to build. And sometimes we might, take a couple steps back. Sometimes we take a few, maybe 10 steps forward, and then the old pattern might creep in a little bit. That's okay. It's about doing the new pattern over and over again, even when we don't want to. And when the old pattern creeps in, we say, whoop, hey, you know what? That was just a one-time thing. We're not doing that anymore. Here's what I want to offer you. Think about this when you're building a new pattern or when you need to break an existing pattern. Look at it as, what are the things that I need to start doing as a practice to make it my new default? Not what new habits do I need to create in the next 3 months? Not what are the new defaults that I want to have in place so that I don't drink anymore. Like, that's too abrupt. Focus on, what do I need to start practicing to break and disrupt this pattern? And then disrupt it first. And then you'll start to get more clarity on the actual things that you want to do. So the first part is like just disrupting it. Okay, I'm going to tell you about one of my beautiful one-on-one clients. She is a VP for a global brand that we all know. And she actually told me that one of my Instagram posts on this exact topic stopped her in her tracks. And she said, Lindsay, that post was me. It's literally my life right now. And she had just started following me from that post, and we started working together a week later. She had been isolating. She had been avoiding the conversations that she wanted to have with her partner and letting things slide that mattered. This is such a big one. And not things that matter just to her, but to her partner also. And, she would pour that wine. She would call it downtime, just like I have been doing. Now, that particular social media post kind of gave her this mirror, and our work together gave her the tools to do something about it. She started having conversations that she'd been avoiding. And let me tell you, this happens slowly, yes, vulnerably, but also bravely. She told me after just a few weeks of leaning into this that she really felt like a weight had lifted, and she wasn't carrying it all by herself anymore because she started to open up to her partner about this. Here's why I was so proud of her. About 2 months into our work together, she ended up having some really heavy news about an old friend. Her emotions were flying, and all her brain wanted was that off switch, that old pattern that she knew worked. Her partner went to bed, and she opened a bottle of wine. She sat outside and drank the whole thing. Now listen, I know I led that sentence saying this is why I'm so proud of her. And you're like, what? Why are you proud of her for drinking a whole bottle of wine? Well, I'm about to tell you. So here's why I'm so proud of her. Old her, she would have ghosted me. She told me this. She said, old me, Lindsay, I would have not shown up for our one-on-one. I would have canceled our session. I would have hidden it, put that bottle of wine in the recycling bin, and disappeared. But she didn't. She showed up, and she didn't show up for me. She showed up because she knew that that's what taking care of herself meant. She used the reflection process that we'd worked on together. She named what happened. She described what it meant and what it didn't. And then she moved forward. She learned from it, and then she kept going. She had a moment where the old pattern snuck in for a night. The next day, she didn't give it any power. She moved on. And that's what this work is about, because there are going to be times that the old pattern sneaks in, and you have it in you to not beat yourself up about it, to not say, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to do this, because you will. The more you show up for yourself, the more you're going to move forward in this journey. Now, she used to think that this is just who she was, someone who needed wine to cope, someone who kept things in. But really, she needed different strategies. She needed strategies that didn't shame her into change, but supported her into expansion. We have to say, I'm willing to get a little uncomfortable for the greater good. Here's the thing. We have these moments where it feels really scary to be vulnerable with our partners because, like I said earlier, we are living in a way where our partner has never seen a vulnerable side to us. We're the ones getting all of the things done. We don't want them to see a side of us that has a secret, something that we can't fix on our own, something that we might need to admit. When we work together, I look at everything that you're doing now and how you are currently communicating with your husband or partner. And we start to talk about the ways that it could feel good for you to bit by bit, not one big emotional conversation, but bit by bit, tell your husband or your partner what it is that you are feeling like you need to change. We're going to practice it with language that feels safe and strong and bold, not, oh my gosh, I'm so scared to talk to my husband about this. This is really where my genius lies. This is one of my favorite things to do with women in our work together, is that little bit of role playing so that you feel really comfortable with these conversations, because that's what it is. You don't know how to talk about it. We put these walls up, And there's so much available to us once we sort of crack this open. And it doesn't have to be hard. I promise you that. I went through this with my own husband, and it was one of the most powerful things that I ever did for our relationship. So I really want you to know that. Okay, so let's change gears a little bit, because what happens is that our brain mistakes isolation for safety. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know that there's two things that I love. I love giving you a little bit of science behind what I talk about, and I love giving you an assignment. Because remember, the other thing that I talk about all the time is that information does not create transformation. You can't just listen to this podcast and then all of a sudden you're not drinking anymore. You have to implement what you learn. Action is what's going to drive your transformation. Okay, so we've been talking about the pattern here. You're on the couch, you've already poured the glass of wine, you tell yourself, oh, it's just how I unwind. But let's look at what's actually happening underneath that story, because this is not a behavior thing. It's your brain. It's a nervous system thing. A patterned loop that's gotten so familiar, it just feels like you, dare I say, part of your identity. And so that's where I want you to zoom out and get a little sciencey here, because this is one of the most powerful things that I teach inside my coaching spaces. Your brain's number one job is survival, not to make you feel happy and joyful. That's not its number one job. It wants to keep you safe, and safe is what's familiar. If you've spent so many days, so many months, or probably even years pouring a glass of wine to unwind, if your Friday nights have turned into solo couch sessions and silent distance with your partner, if you've trained your system that wine equals calm, wine equals quiet, wine equals nobody asking me for anything hard, then your brain now tags that whole routine as safe. And it will fight you if you try to change it, even if that pattern is isolating, even if you don't like how it feels, even if it's robbing you of connection, clarity, and intimacy. That's how neural loops work. Your brain is going to wire based on repetition, not whether or not something is right or what you want to be doing. Your brain doesn't care that it isn't aligned with the woman you want to become. It cares that it knows what's going to happen next. You have a vision. How I want to be living, how I'm currently living. If the actions of how you currently live do not line up to a direct line of how you want to be living, that's the loop that you have to change. And the longer the loop plays, the more it feels like, but I'm just going to be this version of myself. That's just who I am now. That's my identity. But it's not. I'm telling you right now, no matter what your identity is right now, you have the ability to change it. You can interrupt the pattern. You just need strategies, tools, support so that you can do it. And this is the part that is so important, because when you start changing those patterns, you choose to walk into the living room and start a conversation with your husband instead of retreating to the TV room. Your system's not going to throw a party. It's going to go, oh, what are you doing? Right now, we normally go on the couch and drink wine. So this is going to be like a little spike of discomfort. It's going to feel awkward. And that's just your nervous system saying, this isn't the way we usually do this. What's going on here? You're just recalibrating. You're giving your brain a new experience to start wiring from. And the only way that you're going to build those new neural pathways is by repeating the new experience. And remember, earlier I talked about patterns. Doesn't have to be perfect. Maybe some days you go back to the old pattern, but you're not going to do it again. You're going to keep repeating it often enough that your brain starts tagging and flagging those connections as the new safety, the new default system that you're building. If you've been feeling like, why does this still feel so hard? I feel like I'm failing or I'm never going to get there. I want you to know this is hard because your brain is loyal to the loop. It wants that familiar pattern. And this is why inside Feel Good AF, we use nervous system tools, because It's not about like, oh my gosh, I just have to try harder. Like, no, that doesn't work. You actually need strategies to implement in your life. So we're going to train your body and your brain to actually feel safe in this new version of yourself, because that's what it is. You have the current version of yourself, and then you have this version that you want to become. But she doesn't feel safe yet. She doesn't feel familiar yet. And she might even not feel achievable yet, but I promise you, she is. It's about helping your nervous system recognize that you're not in danger just because you're doing things a little bit differently. So if you're sitting here thinking, oh, that's me, that's the pattern, that's exactly how my Friday nights go, then I want to give you a small assignment. This is something super gentle, but it's going to be really powerful. This week, look at where your body is pulling you towards the familiar. Even if it's like, oh, I know that's familiar, but this is an action that's not going to get me to my goal. That's okay. Just notice it. Don't beat yourself up about it. Don't try to fix it. Just notice it. And then ask yourself, if I wanted to challenge this pattern just a little bit, what would that look like? When you come home on a Friday night, and normally the first thing you would do is pour wine, maybe that's immediately going in the kitchen and making yourself a non-alcoholic drink. And I talk about my favorite one all the time. It's what I drank every single night in early sobriety, and I still often drink it, which is seltzer and GT's ginger ale kombucha, 1-to-1 ratio. It's my favorite. So maybe it's just making that drink and sitting down for a few minutes, reflecting on your day. Maybe it's asking your partner to go for a walk before you start making dinner or before you order takeout on a Friday night. That could be nice. Maybe it's just sitting with the discomfort for 5 minutes before doing the usual thing. Before pouring the wine, you say, I'm going to sit here for 5 minutes and see what that feels like. That's it. That is the micro move that starts to shift your default, because you are not looking to white knuckle your way through quitting drinking and being perfect every single day and then beating yourself up when you have a slip. That's not the goal. The goal is awareness. And from the awareness that you're building, you're able to create choice. When you slow down, you give yourself agency to make a different decision. And then every time you make a different decision, you're building that whole new version of you. And that's the version that I coach women into every single day. Because here's the thing, wine was never the problem. The wine is your placeholder. It's this buffer. It's the middleman. It's what makes you procrastinate. And it's what made things a little bit easier to not deal with everything else. The hard conversation that you are avoiding, the boundaries that you weren't setting, the career decisions that you're second guessing, the resentment that is building quietly under this like surface of your relationship. When you pour a drink in that moment, what you're really saying is, I don't want to deal with this right now. And I get it, because you've had a long day. You've been holding it down. You've answered the emails, you've managed the meetings, maybe you've been wrangling kids, you've cooked dinner, and you kept the whole machine running. That glass of wine feels like the reward. It's your moment of peace, but it's not giving you peace. Pressing pause on the discomfort that is inevitable, the discomfort that we all have to feel so that we don't outsource our emotions to alcohol. All of the thoughts, the decisions you need to make, the conversations that you need to have, they're all still there, but you've temporarily muted them. And then the next day, everything that you were avoiding, still there, still on the list. Only now it comes with guilt, self-doubt, that feeling of, why can I not just get a handle on this? Drinking like this becomes a form of procrastination. And not just in your relationship, but in your whole life. You think you're decompressing, but what you're doing is you're delaying what you need. And that is the point of the distance growing between you and your partner. The more that you delay having that conversation to start filling that gap, the bigger the distance is going to grow, just like all the other things that we're putting off when we choose to drink. So here's what I want you to hear. When you finally handle the thing that you've been avoiding, doesn't have to be perfect, you don't just feel productive, but you feel really powerful. You're going to feel so good through a little conversation with your partner. That is how you're really taking care of yourself, because you're showing up for yourself. You're not outsourcing your emotions to alcohol. You are never going to have the perfect time to do this. You're not going to be able to just say, oh, look at that. My calendar's clear for the next 6 months. I think I'll start changing my patterns. That's never going to happen. Okay? It's just never going to happen. You also are like, I don't want you to look at this and think that this is about never drinking about again. I don't want you to look at this and think that it's about never drinking again. It's about disrupting the pattern and seeing how doing that is going to help you rekindle that connection and close that distance that has started to get bigger and bigger between you and your partner. And you're going to be meeting your own needs. This is when you're going to notice, like, oh, this isn't even about the wine. It's about the conversation I'm avoiding, the emotion that I haven't, tended to, this part of me that needs something, but I haven't even figured out how to ask for it yet. When you start meeting yourself there, being really kind to yourself, things begin to change for you. You're going to be able to think more critically. You're going to also say, oh my gosh, I don't even love the taste of wine. It was about the silence that the wine gave me, that buffer, the moment of, oh, I'll just deal with this tomorrow. The version of you that you are becoming, she does not push things to tomorrow. She doesn't need a buffer between herself and her life. We peel back all these layers and we figure out what the wine has been protecting you from. And then we build the version of you who no longer needs it. Because you don't need wine. You need a better coping mechanism. And I know that that feels like, well, what does that even mean? After I talk with you for like 10 minutes, I'm going to know 5 things that you can implement into your life that are going to make it so easy, and they're going to feel really logical too. I also want you to know that this took me a while. Like, this did not happen overnight. It took me a while to get to the point where I was ready to speak up to my husband, to let him in a little bit, because I had so much resistance, and not just to changing my drinking, but like I had a lot of resistance to being open and honest with my husband. Like I mentioned earlier, I didn't want him to see a vulnerable version of me. I didn't want my husband to see a version of me that was, Lindsay needs help. I also didn't really know how to talk about what I was thinking without sounding like I had no confidence, which was also a version of me that I did not want him to see. And I didn't want to sound dramatic, because there had been plenty of times where I had said, oh my gosh, I'm never drinking again. I just wanted to have this little conversation to start letting him in. So when I did finally start the conversation, I just opened up, not with any blame on him or myself. I didn't want to come out defensive, and I didn't make it about him. I made it about me, and not in this like self-centered way. Like, hey, I realize that I'm the one who has created this pattern, and I want to talk about changing it. I didn't know how to talk about what I was thinking or feeling. And now that I am over 5 years sober and I've really had so many conversations with my husband about this, I know that you probably don't either. And I also know that it's easier than we think. When I look back, I'm like, oh, I really overcomplicated that because of that resistance that I was feeling. I really told my husband, look, I'm questioning my relationship with alcohol. And I told him that I didn't want to keep living in a way where I relied on it so much. And I told him that I didn't have all the answers yet. but I was going to figure it out. And he asked me something that I won't forget. He said, well, what would our lives look like if you stopped drinking? And listen, like, he wasn't challenging me. He wasn't saying, I don't think you should do this. He was just curious because, yeah, me changing meant something for both of us. And I just told him in that moment, I don't know. But I know that I have to try doing things without drinking. I already know what it's like to do everything with alcohol in my life. Because when you've built your life around something, even something as subtle as a Friday night glass of wine, it's hard to imagine what different might look like. But that question stayed with me. It gave me something to lean into. And over time, the answer began to take shape. What does life look like now? It has connection. It looks like real conversations. It looks like shared Friday nights, not upstairs, downstairs, but we're actually together. It looks like me and my husband laughing, cooking together, making plans for the weekend without checking if I'm going to feel too foggy or too tired to follow through, or on Friday night complain that we have plans. It's not always perfect, but we are closer now than we were when I was decompressing every night with wine and calling it self-care. Now, this didn't happen overnight, but that one question, what will our life look like if you stop drinking, is what really opened up a level of possibility for us. And it's been over 5 years since I quit drinking. And here's what I know. Your relationship can actually get stronger and it will get more intimate. And you'll start to have fun again once you build your new default pattern. It's going to fit and it's going to feel so good. When you stop outsourcing all of your emotions to a bottle of wine, you stop hiding the real version of yourself from the people who love you most. And that's what this work creates. It's not just about sobriety, but it's about having that connection with yourself and with the people that you love. This might be one of the number one things I get asked in my DMs and when I talk with women and inside my programs. How can I quit drinking if my husband still drinks? This journey is not about controlling him and his behavior, because we cannot do that to other people. It was about changing my own behavior and living in a way that I was proud of. And that's what it is for you. And if that's the part that scares you, if your brain is going, well, it'll be too hard if he's still drinking, let me tell you something. It's not about whether or not your partner still drinks. It's about whether you believe that your energy, your clarity, and your goals and who you want to be is worth protecting. That is where you have power. Now, sure, would it maybe be a little easier if we could hit pause on the world while we get our acts together? But that's not real life. Your friends are still going to drink. Dinners out are still going to happen. Your partner might still pour a glass on a Friday night or a Tuesday night, but you're the one changing, not them. You're going to start making decisions based on who you want to become, not what everyone else is doing. You don't need your partner to be alcohol-free for your relationship to thrive. You just need to be in alignment with who you actually are and your goals. You need your evenings back. You need your peace of mind back. You need to be able to trust yourself again and say, when I say I'm having a non-alcoholic drink at dinner when we go out, you keep that promise to yourself. That's how you start to trust yourself. That's how you build confidence. When you show up from that place, only worried about yourself and not trying to change other people, but simply being really clear on who you are, that is what's going to change the dynamic. This is what I see over and over again. When a woman commits to this path for herself, it creates a ripple. Not because she forced it and because she's telling everybody, I'm not drinking so you can't drink, but because her energy shifts, her needs become clear, her patterns change, and often our partners meet that energy in ways that feel really supportive, even if they don't change their drinking. I know this to be true. This is the work that I do every single day with my clients, and we don't wait for permission. We build this version of you who leads the charge. Grounded clarity, emotional safety, and zero shame is what you are going to have when you do this. You don't need him to stop drinking. You just need to stop breaking the promises to yourself. And then all of this little magic is going to start happening. Earlier, I talked about a client who messaged me after this post on this very topic because it hit so close to home. And that post was her mirror moment. She saw how much her downtime had turned into disconnection, how many important conversations with her partner she'd been avoiding, how easy it was to let their shared dreams kind of go away. Here's the full circle part. That same woman is now leading in her relationship. She's having the honest conversations. She's navigating these messy, gross moments without shutting down. And when she slipped, she didn't spiral. She showed up. And that's the difference between white knuckling or, taking a break from drinking and being miserable and actual transformation. We're not just talking about quitting drinking. We work on how to live, how to lead, and how to connect with yourself and the people that you love. Because this isn't about alcohol, it's about power. It's about feeling present. It's about taking care of yourself. And if you are listening to this episode and you are thinking, God, this is me, I want you to know this is also for you. Feel Good AF isn't another sobriety program with rule books and trackers. It's a coaching experience I built around identity, nervous system regulation, and emotional safety. It's for high functioning women who want their energy, relationships, and clarity back, and who want to do it without shame at second guessing every decision. It's also my honor to be able to support you in it. This is your invitation to begin again. Inside Feel Good AF, whether you join my group or come into private coaching, you're going to learn how to start showing up in your life, not just sober, but just supported, regulated, and fully in integrity with the version of you who's just done with this. So if your next step feels like talking to your partner, start here. Simple little sentences, okay? I've been doing some reflecting and I want to start making different choices around drinking. Not because I have to, but because I want to feel better, more present. I'm not asking you to change anything. I just want you to know where I'm at. That's it. That's all you can say. Just a little honesty is leadership here. So you're just kind of opening the door, breaking the ice on a tough conversation. And maybe it's going to feel a little bit scary. That's okay. It means it matters. Okay. If this episode struck something in you, I want to hear about it. Send me a message on Instagram, send me an email, or click the link in the show notes and explore Feel Good AF. If you have questions about how our work together fits in your life, you can set up a discovery call with me. I love meeting the women who are feeling called to do this work. You're not just quitting drinking. You are creating a life that feels so good that alcohol doesn't even belong in it anymore. And I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. I'm so glad that you've taken the time for yourself to listen to this episode. It means that you care about your progress in this journey. I would be so grateful if you rated the episode, shared it with your friend, and if you're loving this podcast, please subscribe. These little actions help other women who need support find it. Okay, I'll see you next week. And don't forget, I believe in you.